Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Overview Scrutiny Management Committee. Do we have any apologies?
No apologies, but I believe that Councillor Brunel Walker is having some transport issues on the M25 and may be joining us a bit late.
Thank you. Okay, minutes of previous meeting. Page 5. Any comments on page 6? Page 7? Page 8? Page 9? Page 10. Everybody happy with them? Can we have a show of hands then? Thank you. The minutes are agreed. Right. Are there any declarations of interest in the... and are there any questions, Neil?
There are no questions of any kind, Chair.
Thank you very much. Right, so it's on to item 51, the Corporate Complaints Annual Report, and I think Rachel is going to say a few words.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so as you say, I'm saying a few words before I hand over to Lewis Borges, who is Woking Borough Council's Head of Customer Experience and Change, and Danit Penny, who is the Customer Relations Officer and Link Officer to the LGSCO, which is the Ombudsman. So Lewis's team supports each of the services within the council with the handling of complaints, but even more importantly to understand, to learn from and to improve service as a result of the complaints which we receive. The report that we're looking at this evening shows that some directorates have seen a fall in complaints, which obviously in the long term always has to be our aim. In a number of areas, as Lewis will describe, complaints have increased. And obviously it's important that we as the council understand the reasons for this. So in some cases there are overriding reasons for this, for example pressures on the services which we provide, or pressures such as the level of demand for SEND services. In one case there's been an increase in complaints related to the end of the contracted service which we provide to our tenants, and in another case an increase due to how the Ombudsman now requires us to treat complaints. Underlying all of this is the fact which all directorates face, which is the continuing increase in demand for services alongside tightening budgets. But there are, of course, elements which are within our control, and Lewis is going to talk us through the steps that we've taken as a council to learn from complaints this year, identify where we can improve and take steps to improve. And what's most encouraging is that the directorates boost this by working together to share common learning, and there's some really encouraging areas which they've identified for improvement. So thank you very much, and over to Lewis and Danit.
Hi, evening everyone. Thanks very much for having me along today. I think I've met most of you, but as Rachel said, I'm Lewis Borges, Head of Customer Experience and Change. So in terms of the customer experience side of things, that's registrars, your contact centre, and also corporate complaints. And then Change, it's the transformation portfolio, so that's our programme and project managers and process redesign, just to give a bit of context to my role. And in terms of what we're here to talk about today, we've provided the covering report and also the presentation. But I think it's important to talk about the national picture as well as the local one. Absolutely, our complaints, our formalised complaints are up just over 19%, almost 20%. But that does fall in line with some of the national data that we're seeing. Most particularly within the SEND environment, that is particularly difficult and challenging at the moment for all local authorities, not just financially, but also the effort that officers and also parents supporting their children are going through at the moment. The other key factor is the Housing Ombudsman, which we talked about last year at the annual complaints overview and scrutiny meeting, where they've changed the policy and we have to follow it, where there's no opportunity for early resolution. So every complaint that is handled through housing has to start at a stage 1 complaint, so there's no opportunity for early resolution. On the whole, we've made some really good progress on early resolution, particularly in place and growth, And early resolution is one of those things where we don't really fear the numbers too much in that, because it's an opportunity to react to any dissatisfaction or any observations that our residents make. What we want to be able to do is to informally resolve that, because one, it reduces the amount of officer time and effort, and two, it's an opportunity to correct any dissatisfaction, maladministration that we are actually at fault for. One of the things that we have seen in terms of the increase in formal complaints is that some of our residents are wanting to exercise their right to naturally just go through the escalation channels. So there is nothing that we can do to stop someone going from a stage 1 to a stage 2, even if we uphold the complaint and we're at fault. And sometimes that does happen because some of our residents want to seek maybe a slightly different outcome from the remedy that we're proposing. But on the whole, when it goes through to the final layer, which is the LGSEO, the LGSEO have commented in our annual report that the majority of the time that the remedy that we put in place is satisfactory, and if not more than that. So there is absolutely some learnings from our annual report, and most of the time that features around managing the customer expectations. So if we promise to do something, we must do it within a time frame that we set, or what we've actually promised that we will deliver. And equally, it's helping our residents understand some of the services that we are actually responsible for, and where we don't take action, why we don't take action, because it's outside of our boundary or outside of our control. We're pretty proactive at the moment because we have a customer complaints forum, and that is with each directorate where we invite all the leads, and it's really interactive session so that we do some learning with complaints, so that we can then share the insight and the data, because actually ultimately this is such rich information that we get, and it's whereas if I've got my customer experience hat on, some of you will be familiar with GovMetrics, which is how we capture our feedback from our residents just in general surveys. Some of that data isn't as rich in the feedback, or doesn't go into a depth, so it's really important that we harness some of this and use it to make sure that we're doing the best that we can for our residents and the value for money. So hopefully you've had a chance to have a look at the report and the company deck, and I'm happy to take any questions, comments or observations. Unless Jackie or Danny, you want to say anything else?
No, it's a question.
Caroline.
Two things. You're talking about your customer forum. When you're there, do you review, obviously, but do you look for trends? I know you've got themes in here, but do you look at trends that are happening?
Yes, in short, yes. The way that we do that is it's a really open session, so we invite leads from the specific service areas, whether that be housing or planning, highways. And Denis, I should say, I can't even say we, Denis already has that analysis up front, and he does a lot of validation with the services to understand the actual on-the-ground feedback that they're getting, because sometimes that doesn't come through in some of the complaints, particularly the early resolution, because we don't see all the detail for that. Does that help answer your query?
Also, as a councillor, we obviously pick up problems. Do you track complaints or problems from councillors, and if you do, what part of this is it reported? Would it be stage 1 or stage 2? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Yeah, any councillor complaints, if it's submitted on behalf of a resident or a customer, we certainly will log it on, but we would seek to get more, if required, more details from the customer in terms of what's the nature of the complaint, whether it falls within the corporate complaints process. And if that is the case, then we will certainly log it and process it accordingly.
Thank you.
Pauline.
Thank you. Very comprehensive report. Could you just take it a stage further? You've got the learning points here on it. Can you give me some examples of things that you've actually changed in terms of service provision as a result of feedback. So any things that the services have changed rather than you changing.
So I think I'm going to just touch on the managing expectations thing. I think that's a really crucial bit of learning that we've seen that's come out of this report. For example, one example I can give, a very direct example, is a lot of complaints came about because of a planning application decision, and neighbours believing that they would escalate the complaint because they were unhappy with the decision, or they believe that the site visit, which is part of the planning application process, required the planning officer to visit their property. Well, actually, that's not the case. And that resulted in us updating the information online, what are the steps involved in the planning application approval process. And that we've seen a significant drop in those type of complaints. Now, when we see those complaints, they often raise other concerns about the planning officer not considering their comments. That often, I mean, the stats show that planning decision complaints, the majority are not upheld because it just, through the complaints process, and this is why we really do encourage customers to raise their concerns, is that we have the opportunity to explain again how the decision was made, demonstrate that through the planning officer's report, so show that their comments are considered. So that's another example of how we have used the feedback from complaints to make some tangible changes.
Thank you. I think one of the things I've seen quite a bit, I mean, not massive numbers, but in all the complaints I get, is, again, it's communication. And it's when the council's actually resolved something, but they haven't told the person who complained. So it's either, there's certainly one service who I've seen several things stuck in boxes where they're meant to have sent an email, but they haven't, well, they've written the email, but they haven't actually sent it. And then that causes problem. Do you see that a lot? And is there anything we can do about that? So we're doing the right thing. We're resolving the problem. We're just not telling people.
Yeah, no, it's not just you, you're absolutely right. So we need to get better at communication, because all of this is about how we communicate, even down to if there's a service change, for example. Are we being clear? Are we testing that we're being clear to, to our residents to make sure they fully understand the impact and implications? And then going back on that, making sure that we understand the impact on the ground for them. So that is something that we're continually working on, particularly with that complaints focus group where you've got representation across the council. And as Lewis was saying, if we say we're going to do something, then we need to do it within the timescale. And if we can't do that for whatever reason, then of course we must get back to the resident to say, really sorry, there's going to be a delay because of this, and keeping them informed. But yeah.
I mean, the examples I'm thinking of, one was in housing, one was in children's services. The issue had been resolved, but there's something strange about the communication process that means that although the email's been written, it hasn't actually been sent. I don't know whether there's a complicated emailing out process or some verification step or something, but I've seen that happen a few times where everything's been done fine, but nobody's told the customer. And I think there might be a process problem there somewhere, where things, I don't know if you've seen that, where things get stuck.
We can certainly take that away to our colleagues in adults, housing and children's services. With the team I work within, customer relations, even though we do triage all complaints, we have, there are complaints managers within those services that we rely on to coordinate. But with other services, what's really good within what we've seen a massive improvement, which is really important, is that communication piece. We will follow up with the colleague that we've triaged the complaint to, asking what's the update on that, what's the status of that complaint, have you issued that response on time, etc. So there is, we're keeping tabs on that communication to make sure that if it is resolved, we can close it from our end, but also the customer is satisfied with that response too.
Yeah, they're not always actual complaints, they're things that haven't gone right that need fixing. They're not necessarily formal complaints, but things, I mean, I know highways, quite often you don't find out that something's been fixed, and that's sort of just a thing. It's been a thing for years with highways that they fix stuff and then don't tell you. But with adults and children, it's a little bit more worrying because it's actually, if people don't find out about stuff, it's actually more serious than with highways where generally you can tell whether a pothole's been fixed if you happen to drive down the road. It's just a communications problem.
It's good to raise. Thanks, Pauline. We'll take that away.
I can provide you details with the actual cases.
Fab, that'd be great. Yeah, thank you. Examples is always good so that we can go back to that particular example, see what's happened in the process, and then obviously improve for next time. So, thank you.
Dave.
So first question is, we need 5 days to log and acknowledge a complaint. That seems a long time in a sort of digital era. Why do we need 5 days when I'd expect it to be almost an automated process that can be done within, you know, I send my email and I get back a response very quickly?
Yeah, we haven't arbitrarily just, set that 5-day working time. It's something that we've taken from the Local Government Social Care Ombudsman's Complaint Handling Code. For sure, we will try and get it acknowledged earlier, and then, that's improving the customer experience for everyone. So, yeah, we'll definitely try and acknowledge it quick if we can. Sometimes what we're finding is that a lot of these complaints they tend to be more complex, and we've touched on this in the report, which is making it difficult to resolve early, but also understand and tease out what is a service request, what is a complaint. And that takes time. And whether there's a statutory process involved, so that takes it again out of the corporate complaints process, or if a tribunal route is necessary here, that takes time, unfortunately.
I fully acknowledge that you can't solve the complaints. Even 5 days would be very quick for that. I think to acknowledge and log it, we should be aiming for a quicker time than 5 days. I think that is a reasonable expectation. So I'd like to see us maybe making that a higher bar for us. The second thing is, in terms of things that went beyond level 2, how many of those complaints were upheld?
It depends on which. Have you got any specific directorate?
No, I just noticed I noticed a low percentage that go beyond the stage 2.
Mm-hmm.
So those that went beyond, how many were upheld? Because what I'm trying to establish is they've gone to a very high level. They've had to go almost outside the council, and we haven't recognised, for whatever reason, that we've been unable to handle the complaint, and it has been acknowledged and accepted independently that we haven't, been able to fix it, and so we didn't do it properly.
Sorry, so you're asking how many of those complaints that escalate beyond stage 1 are...
No, beyond stage...
Is he on stage
2?
Yes, so we're talking about the ombudsman cases. Oh, yeah. The stats we provided, I just want to make sure that I get it right. It was so 32 decisions made by the LGSCO in 2024-25. 17 were not upheld, 14 were upheld, and 1 was still to be decided. I can safely say that the areas where the upheld rate was significantly high, it's going to be SEND and adult social care, but the majority are going to be those SEND cases.
So have we revisited why we didn't sort of recognise that earlier in our process, and learn from that, and what are the key lessons we have learned?
Yeah, regarding the SEND cases, we often have acknowledged it. We have offered what we think is a suitable remedy that aligns with the Ombudsman's recommendations regarding remedies. Because we can't gatekeep them or stop them from escalating. If they remain dissatisfied with that remedy offer, even though we've upheld it at stage 2, often parents will escalate to the Ombudsman. And in the latter part of 2024-25, majority of cases at the LGSCO which were upheld by them, they agreed with the remedy offered by the service, even at stage 1.
That's good. I'm actually, and that's a good result, because it means that the decisions and judgments we made match the thing, and I'm very happy with that. The ones I'd be concerned, or I'd want to make sure we learnt from, was where our remedy did not match the Ombudsman, so that we could understand why we hadn't been able to synchronise with that.
Bassett.
Thank you. It's a very detailed report, very good. One thing, because there is a lot of data and trending, and there is increase in customer complaints as well. How are we ensuring that the learnings from the complaints, we are translating them into measurable service improvement, not just process change only?
So do you mean the improvement, the learning that we've had from the complaints, how are we ensuring? So each service, each directorate is responsible for their own complaints. What we do as a service is we role model the way, we look after the process, and then we set up sort of learning sessions. So one of the things that we've spoken about this evening already is the complaints focus group. So we have different representation from across the council to sit down, look at trends, look at learning, look at those spaces where maybe they have been upheld by, you know, the Ombudsman, but we haven't upheld them for whatever reason because the resolution wasn't right, or maybe it just wasn't handled correctly. So we take all of that learning and then we use that forum to make sure that we spread kind of the word around the learning and the trends that we've got. What we've also put in place is a programme called the 3 Cs. So the 3 Cs is like a writing and communication programme, going back to Pauline's point, which was the aim was to improve our communication and make sure that our responses back to our residents' complaints were, the 3 Cs is, the C stands for make sure it's clear, make sure that we're confident and it's accurate, and make sure we do it with care, particularly care. So some of the complaints, as you can imagine, that come through, our residents are very dissatisfied and could be quite upset. So we need to make sure that when we do respond back, we respond back respectfully, with care and with empathy, and if necessary, pick up the phone. So again, what we're trying to do, and we've been running this session now for a good 2.5 years, where we've been getting people through that programme to make sure that actually when we do respond back to customers, we do so. We take the learning and we say, actually, this is where we've responded before. This is not a great response. So let's make sure that we take the learning from that and then we create, you know, new ways of communicating. We won't always get it right, but we need to know where we don't. And then, as I say, we can learn from it.
This 3C is a very good initiative. So how we are measuring the success of this initiative?
So I think the success that we've been looking at in terms of measurement, the 3 Cs came in to force about 2 years ago when we were also looking at early resolution. So we've been trying to encourage services not to go, if possible, down the formal route, because customers, if it's just a simple thing that we did wrong, then we need to come back, communicate and say, actually, do you know what, we did do that wrong? Or this happened because, and fix it and put it right. So the way that we were measuring the 3 Cs is, and the success of that, is by looking at the number of early resolutions that we were able to resolve properly through early communication, the right communication, potentially picking up the phone to a resident rather than sending a long letter. So that was kind of one area. Another area is where we've trained what we call assessors. So in each of the areas as well, we've got assessors that quality assure the responses that go out. We can't catch every response because obviously there's quite a lot of work to do, but for some of those key ones, we do quality assure those to make sure that absolutely what we're not doing is we're not escalating the situation because we've sent something out that people don't understand, or we've written it without care or clarity, etc. So there's kind of the numbers, but there's also the qualitative stuff, the narrative, the context, and understanding around that.
And last thing, so if I get it right, you do sample audit then, sample auditing for some of the communication and handling. Is that correct? Sample audit, do you guys do that for some of the customers?
We do certainly, we during the, as we touched on regarding the complaints focus group, which we meet quarterly, we invite those leads who lead on complaints and are coordinators of complaints within their own directorates to provide examples of where they feel that they feel the complaint response was lacking, and then we provide, as a group, we cooperate in terms of assessing it and seeing where things could have been improved. But in terms of like picking out a complaint response, often I will see it when I look at complaints at stage 2, I'll have to look at the stage 1. And if I think there's issues with it, I will go direct to the service manager or lead on it. And I say, we have a good, I think we have a frank but fair relationship with these leads in terms of, I think, this is where we think improvements could have been made in the stage 1. The customers come back, escalate to stage 2, again, touching on this communication issue because they don't understand, there's too much jargon put into your stage 1. What's this an acronym here? It's about breaking it down and making it really plain to them in terms of understanding how the decision was made. And so we don't go out and randomly pick, but it often comes to our attention by when I start looking at the complaint at stage 2 and my colleague. So.
Andrew next.
I was just going to come back to one of the things I think we mentioned a bit earlier, which sort of relating to how you kind of triage complaints and things like that, because I think it was mentioned on one of the slides there that there's maybe a different sort of concept amongst some of the sort of departments about what constitutes complaint, because I mean obviously if someone says I've got a pothole on my road, that's not the same as a serious sort of children's services complaint. And I guess looking through those, I mean, it looks like most of them come in either through the web form or the email. I assume the web forms are like the highways general inquiries or the customer services, whatever. But I mean, obviously, if it's coming through the central customer services one, presumably that's a small team which triage those and send them out, if I'm correct. But if they're directly emailed to departments, so how many people deal with them and decide what is a complaint or not?
So we have an online complaints form specifically for complaints. So there's not a separate one for highways or any other service. There is one form, one page, and policies all on the same page, including those in easy read as well. And we try and distinguish there before anyone even completes the form what a complaint will be, which process does it need to go down. In all honesty, it doesn't really matter. If a resident would like to complain, they can complete the online form, or they can phone us, or sometimes they email direct. The best way to complain is by completing that online form, in all honesty, because it comes into one central point, it comes into Lewis and Dan's team, and they have got the expertise to triage. So the complaint is acknowledged immediately because it's gone into a system, it's gone into a customer relationship management system. So as soon as it comes in, the resident gets an acknowledgement that we've got it. It's here, it's sat in the system. Where the 5 days comes from is it's then we need time to triage. We might do that within 24 hours or less. And then the team then find out what that complaint is. They then allocate it to the service that the complaint is about. So, I don't know, highways or planning or wherever that is. And then somebody within that service will pick that up. But that's where we've got connections, isn't it? Down where we've got direct connections with people in service that will pick that up. So it won't fall into well, it shouldn't fall into a black hole because they also have access to the back end of this system. If it goes via email directly to someone in a service, that's the bit we don't see. So that's when it gets a little bit more tricky because we're then reliant on the individual officer picking that up, speaking to the person who's the complaints handler within service and logging it into the system, which is why it gets a bit more tricky that way.
And so if someone completes the complaints web form, but with something which clearly isn't really a complaint, which is maybe like a minor service requirement or something, is that automatically redirected for them to like fill in an alternative form, or is that forwarded on and presumably that's then not actually logged as a complaint even if they filled out the form? Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah. So during the triage process, when we send that details of what's come on within the complaint form onto the relevant, what we think is the relevant service, we will ask them in that email, please confirm if it's going to be treated as a complaint, these are the timeframes you have to abide. If it's not, let us know and how you're going to deal with it. And in terms of there is an expectation. Often it's very clear, if it's a missed bin collection, we will ourselves direct them to the webpage, for missed bin collections. If it's a bit, we will gain, but in terms of us managing that complaints relationship management system, we're responsible for making sure that the person we triage it communicates to us as to how they've closed it, how they've advised the customer, so that there's a tight communication loop in terms, there's no break in it. So yes, we do expect the service that we've triaged it to notify the customer how that service request is going to be managed.
Thank you. Shahid.
Thank you, Chair. Quite a detailed report. There's a lot of information there. So thank you for it. There's a lot of effort has gone into putting this together. I know we're looking at the complaints, but also it's worth noting the compliments as well. 700 plus, which is there must be something we're doing right, which is it's good to acknowledge that while we're looking at the complaint side of things. The 2 points. One is regarding whether we as a council are a learning organisation and how we demonstrate that actually we are learning from over the years. And I always struggle with that over the years. That yes, we have a complaint. This is particularly about a complaint, but obviously this is across the board. We identify what the problem is. We have an action plan. This is what we're going to do. But there is no, if there is, tell me, let me know, any tangible evidence to show we actually have learned from that process. And 3 years down the line, yes, this is what and this is the tracking and the monitoring system we have in place to demonstrate real tangible improvement because of what we did a couple of years ago. Do you see where I'm coming from? We talk about the action plans. This is our strategy. But 3 years down the line, actually, I don't know whether we improved or not. Hope you're following what I'm saying, right? Do we have such a system? Do we have such a way of monitoring?
I think it's a really good point. I would say that actually where we've improved the most is around the way that we're communicating to complaints, about complaints, using straightforward language, clear language, more with empathy. Up to a couple of years ago, until we started talking about this sort of stuff, even by sort of saying, would you say those sorts of things around the dinner table with your family? Would you use those words in general conversation? No, you probably wouldn't. And if there's certain jargon that we need to use, then for statutory reasons, whatever it is, say it, but then say what this means is, or what this means to you is. So I would say that actually the way that we're responding to complaints is so much better than it has. I mean, okay, we're not perfect, because if you think about the thousands of transactions that go through the council every single day, we're never not going to have a complaint, ever. And we are going to mess up sometimes, but that's because we're dealing with so much, high volumes of things. I'm not making excuses. I'm just saying that's sort of how it is. But I think we have really improved in the way that we treat complaints. That customer experience, so trying to move and change the narrative and the language from service, it's actually about the experience, and what experience do our residents want to have when they interact with us. So I think it's been, we've got the customer experience strategy as well. So we've got measures and we've got an action plan in that, but it is a 5-year strategy. We've been working on our language as number one, so that we don't escalate issues and problems. In terms of the numbers and measuring the numbers, we produce this report. We'll produce a quarterly report, as you know. we produce an annual report, and we work really closely with the Ombudsman, and we review the report that they're getting. What we do need to do is a bit more benchmarking, which will be easier next year when... From 2027, when the Ombudsman make it clear to everyone that they need to share their data, because not everyone shares their data. So we need to do some benchmarking there. But in terms of measurement and improvement, we've got the data, but it's important that we also understand the context of what we're doing.
So are we saying that, say, next year, we'll be in a position to say, look, this is what we discussed a year ago, 2.5 years ago, and as a result of this, the action we've taken, we are in a better shape than last year?
Yes. I think what we need to take is the learning, so the areas of focus from this year, and then next year, when we look at the annual report, we need to go back and look at what we said we were going to focus on and make sure that the golden thread is through the report that you will see tabled next year.
Okay. Second point was regarding, specifically about children's
Hang on a
services.
minute, Shahid, because I wanted to say something follow on from that. Have you got any way of saying what the customer satisfaction with the complaints process is? Apart from, you've said that people they're not happy with the, so they escalate. Apart from that, feedback on the complaints process. I think it follows on from what you were talking.
Yeah, we have govmetrics. Unfortunately, we've had little feedback from customers responding and using that tool to let us know how they think the complaints service was for them. I think you can imagine why. Usually they don't receive the response they want, so they just are not inclined to respond. We will use that.
But it is sent, there is a short survey around satisfaction sent out to every single person where after a complaint has been resolved, and we ask about how we handled it. You may not have accepted the answer or liked the answer, for example, but actually did we handle that, with respect, with care, etc.
Okay, thanks. Go on then.
Just to comment on the point as well, I mean, as councillors, we only hear when something is wrong. When actually the solution has been provided, we don't hear anything, right? So it's a typical, I think you probably get a low response. The second point was, more specific perhaps, is obviously SEND, and especially certain issues within that, has been ongoing for a very long time. And particularly the EHC plan assessments, and that causing a lot of complaints. And being on the committee for a number of years, this has come up again and again and again. Maybe this is not a question for you, perhaps, because you're not representing children's services. But obviously, we're going to continue to get these complaints until we actually resolve the underlying issues. Underlying issue is, if they're still there year on year, then we're still going to have these complaints. So the only way we're going to reduce is to actually address the particular issues which are... So I know this is not for you, but nevertheless, I can see just if those issues are not addressed properly, then still a year down the line, I'll probably expect increasing these complaints, not reducing them. So maybe just a worth making note. This is what needs to be done, I suppose. Yeah, thank you.
I can make a comment regarding what the LGSCO has commented on the SEND situation. SEND effectively makes up around 27% of their caseload currently, and they're upholding 91% of all those cases. They're very well aware. They've gone to central government and they provided some recommendations. Because unfortunately, not unfortunately, but reality is that the council is ultimately legally responsible for the management of that EHCP. But the Ombudsman has highlighted to the central government, that they think they don't want their remit stops at the school gate. That's the words they use. They cannot comment on the school's input in their input in making sure that EHCP provision is provided, they've recommended that they have those extended powers to look at the school's role in EHCPs failing. So that, I think, would be really important in terms of offering balance to the volume of complaints that are upheld against councils and local authorities nationally.
Just one comment on that, if I may come back. I mean, being a school governor as well, I've seen that there's a lot of finger pointing going on in different directions. Schools are saying it's the council who's taking such a long time to complete the process, and it's nothing to do with us, it's with the council. The council is saying because we don't have the resources and because of X, Y, Z reasons, right, we can't do this within the time frame. But the bottom line is everyone is suffering as a result of that. Children are suffering, the families are complaining, and as councillors we get complaints from the parents as well. So no one is happy in that whole process. So the only way it can be done unless the issue is resolved. I know, again, this is the council, different department, but that is where the problem lies. Otherwise, we can continue to get complaints as councillors, and also complaints here being registered as well.
Beth.
I wanted to follow up, having worked in the complaints department myself, whether once a complaint comes in and is allocated, is it the same officer that handles it to the end, once it's got into its right department, so someone has ownership of that complaint until it's solved?
Largely, yes. So the triage element, when it first comes in, it happens within Dan's team, and so we have some customer relations officers named that deal with that. But once they pass it on to the service, there is an acknowledgement at that point. And usually at stage one, it's usually a head of service or service manager level that then is the person investigating that complaint, and they're the named complainant. Stage two, it then comes back to us, so it will be Denis or one of his colleagues. There's one other colleague that tends to do stage twos, and again, that's a named contact. More often than not, we will try and have a conversation with that person to understand their complaint, because it can get a bit complex, and particularly when you're going back and forth asking clarification in email, that they can build up to 4, 5, 6 emails, and sometimes actually a phone call or offering to go out and meet someone usually suffices. So that personal contact, having that name contact, goes a long way.
That's good to hear. What about people for whom English isn't their first language?
Sorry, I looked at Dan because I'm not aware of a case that's happened yet, but that doesn't mean to say that it won't happen in the future. Yeah, we do have translation services. We're also, obviously the bit of a buzzword at the moment, the AI translation is something that we're looking at as well. So please forgive me, that's probably for another day to discuss that. But at the moment we would use our translation. It is a paid for service.
Thank you.
Any more comments? Oh, I think we're done. Thank you very much for coming.
Thanks very much, everyone.
Okay, Neil's just reminded me that some of them are going. Neil's just reminded me that we're going to send this report to all the councillors so that everyone understands, A, the complaints process, which is actually in the report, and what's been happening with the complaints. We just thought that all the councillors should see that. think this might be off the record.
But I did notice that in the drop-down list on the complaints page, councillors is one of the things in the drop-down menu.
That helps us redirect it.
Yeah.
So yes, so we don't do it. It can still come through the same process, but the same channel, but the process is different. So that would go to Andrew.
Okay, on with the agenda. Agenda item 52, the Executive Forward Programme. So, page 33. Page 34. We've done some of this. Oh no, it hasn't actually come. Hasn't actually come to the executive yet. Page 35.
What is a school organisation plan?
Yes.
But it doesn't appear to have gone through scrutiny.
Beth, you didn't have your microphone on then.
We used to do that when we were responsible for schools. I don't know whether we still do it.
Andrew might have the answer.
I have half an answer. I think it's to do with, some of it is related to the school place planning strategy type thing. I did raise this one with Prue because I know it hasn't gone to scrutiny. I think the response I got was that the various parts of it, most of that has gone to scrutiny at some point. So I think that parts of things like the school place planning strategy, I think some of that will feed into that. So I think the idea is that most the bits of it have come to scrutiny, but it is something I'm following up a little bit with in case there's anything which hasn't. But I think that paper itself hasn't, but similar bits have.
Okay, so and as chair of children's scrutiny, you're quite satisfied that it's been looked at?
Yeah, I'm still following up on some of that because I did raise that with Prue, but yeah, I'm checking some details with it.
Sorry, page 36. Have my microphone off. Everybody happy with that then? Right. Okay. Yeah. Let's go on to sorry, I've turned over 2 pages. Draft work programmes. Now, this is why Jackie's stayed, because... Do you want to say what we talked about earlier?
Yeah, that's fine. So we're tabling 3 items. We'd quite like to bring those 3 items together, mainly because on the 13th of January, the key officers aren't here to bring the update on the VCS partnership. So if we could move that to the 2nd of February, then we'll bring customer experience review, the council motion, and the VCS paper at the same time. And then we'll have all the relevant officers in the room.
I mean, it seems okay to me. And then, and part of it was also moving the leader and chief executive to the next one. Yeah.
Is that the VCS strategy paper that I've been asking for about 1.5 years?
That's the one.
Good.
Okay, is everyone happy with that then?
Sorry, Chair. Are we saying the leader and CX when will that, are we going to take
So
that?
it's moving the VCS to February and leader and chief executive to March.
March, okay.
Page 44. Climate emergency overview and scrutiny, page 45. Haven't had one of those for ages. Page 46. We still haven't got an expert. Are you still pursuing that, Neil?
We're trying to get a guest speaker, but the person we've been talking to couldn't do the relevant date, so we maybe organise a separate session outside of a scrutiny meeting.
For all councillors?
Yes, could do.
Page 47. Thanks, Jackie. Page 48, community and corporate. Well, we had that meeting. We lived through that meeting yesterday. Page 48, page 49. Page 50. Beth.
There may be some changes in the HOSC of the 3rd of December, as the NHS didn't actually turn up to our meeting this week. So I'm negotiating with them to see if they'd like to visit us in December with the winter plan update.
Okay, thank you. Page 52. And page 53. Pauline, sorry, I went blank then.
I just wonder, as a general structural point, whether we could talk about overview and scrutiny management, because the last couple of meetings have been pretty light. I mean, this one's extremely light. The last one was pretty light. I'm just wondering if we've actually got too many meetings and we should start amalgamating things or amalgamating meetings. I mean, this one, yeah, has been very short. The previous one was very short. Having a meeting with one item on the agenda is not really very sensible use of officers' time, or indeed our time, I think. Might be worth having less meetings and having a bit more meat on them. Not the same extent as overview and scrutiny yesterday, which was the other extreme. But yeah, maybe just a little bit more.
Going back to page 40, 13th of January is a bit lighter than it was. It sparks prosperity. And the Q2 performance report, which takes quite a lot of time, doesn't it? Admittedly, it's not a hugely heavy.
So we originally had 3 items on tonight, and as you've heard, some have been deferred, which is obviously happens at fairly short notice. But yes, it's a fair point.
I think to come back on that, I mean, obviously happens at a fairly short notice is not really good enough. For instance, the VCS partnership report is now in a year and a half since it was asked for, and it's still moving back. Now,
No, the reason it's not that it's not ready, it's because Sally isn't here, and she wants to.
I can understand why Sally wants to front it.
It's not that it's not ready.
Yeah, but it was last time, and the previous time it was because it didn't answer the question.
That's
I think I'm not talking about that one in particular, but in principle, we shouldn't be having a schedule where at the last minute people don't meet. I mean, if I think back to my time going to the audit committee in the company I worked for, I certainly wouldn't have dared turn up or not turn up to an audit committee meeting because I wasn't ready. It'd be the last thing you did before you got the sack. So I think principally we shouldn't be having things drift. I can understand Sally not wanting that to go without her being there, absolutely, and I think that's the right decision. But I think there's maybe a bit too much moving of stuff, and those meetings are very light. And we did say yesterday that our meeting was very heavy and that this one was a bit short.
We councillors all wanted the Grays Farm to come to this meeting.
Yeah.
And
well, we're in charge, aren't we?
Turned down.
Yeah, we're in charge.
Well, that's what I thought.
Well, if we're in charge and we wanted it to come to this meeting, it should have come to this meeting.
I know.
So why are you sitting here saying we wanted it to come to this meeting and it didn't? Sounds like we're not in charge.
This is a very valid point, and I will take it back to make sure that we have the clarity. The meeting in January, we've got the work programmes for 26-27, and maybe we can give some serious thought then to making sure that the items are achievable on the set dates.
Thank you, Neil. And I think the other point, just to reiterate it, is if we say it's on this meeting, it's on this meeting. It shouldn't be a negotiation. It shouldn't be somebody else's view. It's the chairman of this committee's view as to what meeting it goes to, not some other person.
Shahid?
I mean, just following on what Pauline is saying, even I'm just thinking if for the last minute as well, even say a week before, we feel that the agenda is very light, still, is it not worth considering whether this is worth for the meeting to go ahead? Because for the point is still valid. This office is the councillor's time, plus the officer's time. I mean, for example, today, it was a good discussion, but we could have had this in the next meeting. So today, there was no need to have a meeting, to be honest. And I was considering, is it really worth going to that meeting, right? Because there's nothing there in the agenda. So I'm saying even, in a short time, if we feel as a chair, obviously, that this is not much there, it's not worth everybody's time, then maybe just say, look, there's no meeting and we just follow this next time.
I think Neil is noting that. That was exactly what we said at 20 to 11 last night. Both of those things, complementary, that Grays Farm should have been put to this meeting. Anyway, so I think we should try and guard against this sort of thing happening again. Beth, sorry, I think Alison was first, but...
So I just wanted to ask if, I know when I was Vice Chair of OSM, we had a regular meeting where the Chair and the Vice Chair of OSM with the chairs of the other scrutiny committees met every month to ensure that everything was being covered and moving around.
To me, that just sounds like having a meeting about a meeting, but
well, they did actually work pretty well. Yeah.
Perhaps we could have those. We could have those online, couldn't we? We could have those meetings online. Yeah. Beth.
Could I suggest that we ask for a workload of between 2 and 2.5 hours to make the meeting worthwhile? Because we've got a rough estimate of how long these take, and that if we haven't got enough, we amalgamate a meeting.
I don't think Mark will come now. Mark won't come now. As of yesterday, he was well aware that we'd probably finish early, so I don't think he'll come.
So maybe, Chairman, the first thing we could do is say, is it worth having the 13th of January meeting?
Well, it is scrutinising the key performance indicators, which takes quite a while, doesn't it?
And when are those key performance indicators completed? What period are they for?
Q2, which is July, August, September.
So it's getting very old by the time we get to January, isn't it?
Just other thing is it not possible to bring the leader and CX in forward? It's only, 3 weeks difference? Rather than delaying it, so that's another agenda item.
Yeah, that's good.
So bring that forward, right? So it doesn't have to be to the next meeting. So at least it makes it worthwhile.
I can ask.
I think the general point is what we're trying to make all of us is that at least we're here, at least it should go on for at least 2 hours, right? Make it worthwhile for everyone, be efficient, rather than just half an hour, 1 hour, we're all done. And I don't think that's a good use of anyone's time.
And then we've got plenty of things for the 17th of March, by the look of it. Okay. Right. Gosh, made a decision. Okay, agenda item 54, action tracker. We did the update to ONS before policy submitted to the executive, 29th of September. We did that, it's completed. On page 55. Page 56. And page 57.
So have we been sent the AI policy yet? 'Cause I don't know if I've missed it.
I understand it's been posted onto the member intranet.
Well, that's a typical IT way of stopping us easily being able to access things. Because, I mean, I think they seem to think we all carry around this minuscule screen laptop everywhere we go, rather than understanding that we all, you know, we work with our phones, we work with our own computers, and, you know, lovely as and compact as they are, but we don't all work with them all the time. So why they can't just email it to us, I don't know. How, you know, it's not beyond them, is it?
Well, we could at least do with an email saying that it's there. Yeah, with a link. Yeah. Have you written that down? Yeah. Good. Right. Fantastic. Anybody, any more ideas for spinning this meeting out a bit longer?
Very last point. Can we try and avoid having date to be confirmed? It's better to set dates and then...
Targets,
yeah.
Miss them, yeah.
Are we discussing next year's programme in January, so that will be the time to actually put it into a specific date?
But nothing's moving because
It's just a quick notice. Every now and then the camera was going blurry, like now.
the last budget snookered everything.
No. Yeah, every now and then it's gone really bad.
We thought we were losing the plot. Oh, look, it's clear now.
It clears, and then all of a sudden I think it's certain cameras.
Is it? It's the one pointing over there then.
Where it's I've probably broken it. Yeah, it's just.
Adrian put tape over it when he came in.
There, so you go.
Look,
Yeah.
No, I just put mine.
Yeah.
I think it needs to go to Specsavers.
To be fair, some of us have been blurred, maybe a blessing.
I just think. Yeah.
Need some glasses.
Okay. Meeting clerk. You want to say something?
I was just going on to say, if it's been live streamed, we need to sort it out before the next meeting, because obviously there is an issue. That was all. Thank you.
Okay, thanks everyone. Have an early night.